Well, with us tonight is Henry Schlegel, a lifelong Oley resident and somebody that has been around the Oley Fair for a very long time and still is an active volunteer. So thank you for coming tonight, Henry.
Thank you.
So Henry, we want to start off by talking, you're very involved with the Oley Fair and the tractor pulls, and you've been involved pretty much from day one of the tractor pulls. So can you tell us a little bit about how the tractor pulls started and how they've progressed and all the different places on the fairgrounds that tractor pull has taken place?
Okay, I'll try that. Okay, when the first tractor pull, the first setup we had for it was we were trying to figure out who had more knowledge on it. And this Charles Levan used to work for Albernos, and he did a lot of tractor repair and everything, and he got to all the farmers in the town, in the valley. And the biggest thing when he'd go, he was like a digger. You know, he'd go and he'd say, how's your tractor going, this and that, you know, and then he said, and they'd brag up how much they could pull, how many plows he could pull, and everything else. Well, we had people like Hen Eric and Frank Fisher and a few others, you know, they were like the king of the valley. And this was always a contest between them. And so when we start this tractor pull, we invited them especially to get there to participate in the program. So anyway, we didn't have a sled or anything, so we went to a number of different fairs that had sleds, and to see what they had so we could make something up, because we're, you know, cheaper. And anyway, well, I went to quite a few myself, and so did Charlie, and we came up with one that was like up at Morris in Tioga County. They had a dead pool where they only had a little bit of area, and we didn't have that much area then here at Oley, so we figured that would probably be the best something to set up. So anyway, their pull was only 10 feet long. They had a chain hook to it, and when they pulled, as soon as they yanked the pin out of the ground in the back, that was a full pull, and that was only about 10-foot section. So they wanted to have more runway, you know, you want to say, and so we made a sled. And I think the plate they got, and Stanley Angsted, I think, was the one that welded the two plates together to make enough room to stick two tractors on them to drag the sled. So the first sled, that's what we used, but we didn't know how we were going to operate it, so we put some weight on it, and then they had individual people standing on the plate every so many feet to kind of bog it down, which worked out pretty good. The only thing is they had to go in a real low gear because the people would lose their balance as they got on there. So anyway, that only lasted like 1 year, and we had to make a change on that. But they used to go a certain distance, and then they'd measure up how far they pull it or how much weight they had pulled. So the following year, or maybe a year or so after that, we decided to put weight on it and pull for time, for the distance. And that's how we ran it for maybe a couple of years like that. And we could put two tractors on the plate, and they'd have to drag it in the amount of time that the guy that could drag it in the quickest time, he was generally the winner. So we, like I said, we used that a few years, and then we decided to make a machine. And well, we didn't have anything to go with, so here comes Hen Eric. He says, oh, I got a trailer, and I got this, and I got an old trailer. And here comes Frank Fisher. Those are the two guys that compete, you know. Anyway, he has this old Ford truck stake body, and he said, you can have it, whatever you want to do with it. So my brother lived over on a rented ground farm over in the mine lane, and he would live there. So we went and got that truck off of Frank Fisher, and fifth wheel off of Heneric, and we started working on this with these ideas that we had from all these other places we went to. Anyway, we got it set up and played with everything, trying to get everything working, and put a concrete slab on it, but we didn't know how we were going to pull it back. Well, so we figured out we used cable, and we finally got it going, and we used that machine, I would say 10 years, almost 10 years, and finally it was, everybody's getting bigger tractors, newer tractors, and we just couldn't stop them with the amount of weight you could put on. So what we did was, Frank had another truck, and we went and he cut the frame off of that and put it on the front of the piece that we already had and made it longer, and that was all right, and that lasted for probably 3 years, and then we decided that still the newer tractors, bigger tractors, and we couldn't stop it. So I had been looking around, you know, for another way of doing it, and we took a framework that when I was working at Martin Stone Quarry, and I took a framework that they had for an upright, and you asked about getting that, and they gave it to me and put the frame on. We made the frame rails longer and put it on a gradual slope, so that when you stop, the block would roll back by itself. And we had to put a brake and stuff on that, you know, and that's kind of how the setup was until about 4 years ago. We went and my boy and Arlen's boy, they were working at Deca Battery, and they were getting rid of some old trucks up there, and he asked them about it, and they donated a whole tractor to us for nothing. And anyway, but we had to do what we had to do. So we stripped it up at Eric's house and took the axle and everything out and the transmission, and we took those parts, made our buggy heavier, and put the Road Ranger transmission in and rigged it up that way with other brakes. And that's kind of what we are today. But I want to say the first one, I call them the farm boys, and that was Randy Shary, Charlie Levan, Arlen Beaver, Ernest, and myself. Those were the farm boys that really started from the beginning, and the helpers now are my boy Eric and Danny Beaver and George Young. So that's kind of the scoop. Now, you were saying about the area that they pulled in. The very first place we pulled, where I said they stuck the people on, was right around where the Red Cross building is now, right behind that. They used that kind of flat area, but that was just gravel. There was no clay, and it was getting ripped up. So when we moved a little further down, maybe about where across from the flagpole, and that worked pretty good, but it was still not the best. So the first time we had the machine, we put clay down a little further down towards the animal building, and we also found a scale up at Onalani Orchards that was in pieces that Arlen Beaver found, and then we dug that out of the field and brought it down there and got it working and set it up right there at the animal barn, and that worked fine until they complained about, we had a lot of rain a couple of years and nothing but mud, and it's kind of sloppy for the people to walk around in. So Frank Fisher says, you gotta move that. He said, you gotta move that. So that's when it got moved down to the bottom of the hill and everything else. And we put the scale down there, mounted it permanently, and we converted it to this a few years ago. We converted it to digital, and it works fine, and it has a state stamp on that thing, and it's 1931. So that's how old it is, but it works just fine. So as far as the everything else, when we originally asked to have permission to do this, we asked John Frankhauser, and I think he was the president at that time, and then right after that, Frank Fisher too. So I think that's about where we are today.
So the big sled has a name. You remember what that name is?
Is it Power Wagon 2, I think it is.
Yep, today
the
it's
first
Power
one
Wagon
was Power
2.
Wagon 1, that was the little one, but it was just too small, and like you have down here. You know, we made 5 upgrades on that sled, from just a flat plate to what we have now. And the tractors are, you see how the class is. I mean, we get more tractors every year, and the thing that I like about it is they have to pull weight. It's not a racetrack. And I mean, and I think that's why you're drawing so many people too, because it's more down to earth. And every time you see it on TV, they're racing from one end to the other. And this is a pulling machine, you want to say.
So your engineering, between you and your son, your engineering doesn't only start with or stop, I should say, with the big sled. Just recently, this past year, our kiddie tractor pull sled needed some repairs, and you and your family did that. So
yeah, most of that was done by Eric, but yeah, I helped him on some of it, but not much. He had to get some other parts and stuff because they were just kind of wore out.
Great.
You know, and it's a big thing when the adults use the kiddie sled, or you want to say, and they're pulling on that steering wheel. That's how you yank it right out of the tractor. So I told him, I said, see if you can get rebar. And he did. He took a rebar and bent it around and make a steering out of that. So I don't think they're going to be pulling that off this time.
Well, thank you for those mechanical abilities. So aside from the sled, aside from the tractor pulls, you also had another job at the fair years ago, and that involved the tents. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Okay, when I was in school, in the FFA and in the vocational ag class, Carl Blank was my ag teacher, and he told us, well, he didn't tell, he was instructor to show us how to splice rope, and that's mostly what happened. And when the tents, they used to stick the pole in the corner, miss the hole, and rip the tent, you know. So there was a lot of tents that needed repair. And my pop said to me, and I was working at Bethlehem Steel at the time in nights, and he said if I could help get these tents over at Ezra Knoll. So we went over there, and he showed me what to do. You know, he spread out a whole tent on the lawn, and you had to go over and you had to mark every hole that had to be fixed, mark them, glue a patch on it, and then he dragged the whole tent in there, and he had a hole dug down there when he had his sewing machine down in that hole, and I had to drag it through the garage, you know, to stick it on the sewing machine. And he'd sew them all in, but then all the ropes that were wrecked, I used to splice the rope, you know, and the loops and stuff, and they were all ripped. So I had done quite a few of those. So then one day he says, you got to take a tent and put it up in town. And here it turned out to be one of them big ones that they had with the electric pole, like, we hauled it into town right next to the courthouse, on Court Street, and we had to get the prisoners to drive the stakes. And we just supervised getting it up, and we only had to get it up and tie it all, stiffen it all up. And they had sold it to Crystal Restaurant, and then they took care of taking it down. So that's the only time I helped one of those big ones.
So Henry, you've been around the fair a long time. Any special memory that sticks in your mind or anything you really enjoy about the fair?
Well, I was talking to my wife, you know, and I really like to look at the exhibits, and I even like the crafts they have now, that they have in where the drawings are, you know, that there interests me a lot, you know. Somebody got a talent that they can do, and it really turns out nice, you know. So I ain't too much on the new stuff, you know. I'm right on the old time stuff, you know.
Well, Henry, thank you so much for doing this interview. Thank you for everything you do with the tractor pull. It's definitely a favorite event at the fair, and we hope you're going to continue to help us for a long time.
Okay, thank you.